Man, I swear my hands were shaking so much on the steering wheel I almost crashed the car. Just imagine, you pick up a regular ride in the middle of the night, look in the rearview mirror, and see a guy sitting in your back seat who you went to his funeral 2 years ago. It's not a lookalike, not a doppelganger, it's him, the same Robert you saw being buried, whose wife was crying her eyes out, whose whole town mourned, and now he's there, alive, asking me to go to the airport. How would you react? Because right then and there, I thought I was going crazy. Look, I'm going to tell you a story that still gives me the chills. And I've been a rideshare driver for 5 years. I've seen everything in this job. Drunk people throwing up in the car, a couple fighting that almost came to blows, people fleeing a robbery. I've even helped deliver a baby. But what happened that Thursday morning? Man, that's going to be etched in my memory until the day I die. It was 2:30 in the morning, and I was finishing up my shift. You know how it is, right? You're in this life because you have to be. But after midnight, things get heavy. All that's left are weirdos, desperate people, or strange situations. I was even thinking of heading home, calling it a night, when a ride popped up from downtown to the airport. Man, a ride to the airport in the middle of the night is always a crapshoot. It could be honest, people missing a flight, or it could be people running from something. But the fare was good, about $45, and I thought, hey, last ride of the night, I'll end on a high note. I accepted the ride and went to pick up the passenger on Main Street, right in the old part of the city. That area that's full of office workers during the day and turns into a ghost town at night. I got to the pickup spot. It was in front of a half-abandoned commercial building. One of those that only has a few dentists and sketchy accounting offices. The guy was leaning against a lamppost with a small backpack and a baseball cap pulled low. The kind of person who doesn't want to be recognized. You know, at the time, I didn't pay much attention. I just thought, another runaway. I rolled down the window and asked, "Robert, that's me," he replied in a hoarse voice, getting in the back seat quickly. And that's when it happened. Folks, that's when my life turned upside down. The guy sat down, closed the door, and when the car's interior light came on for a few seconds, I looked in the rearview mirror and almost had a heart attack. Even with the cap, even with the scruffy beard, even 2 years older. I knew that face. It was Robert Mendonca, my old neighbor from the suburbs. The Robert who died in a car accident on the interstate exactly 2 years and 3 months ago. The Robert whose wake I went to, whose widow I comforted, whose casket I helped carry. The Robert who's buried in Northwood Cemetery. Man, I swear my heart was pounding so hard I thought I was going to have a stroke right there. My hands started sweating, and for about 10 seconds, I couldn't say anything, just staring at him through the rearview mirror as if I were seeing a ghost. "So, man, everything okay? Let's go," he said. And the voice was exactly the same. That deep, slightly slurred tone I'd known since we were neighbors. I had to take 3 deep breaths before I could even put the car in drive. "Airport, right?" I managed to say, trying to keep my voice normal. "That's right, Terminal 2, 5 a.m. flight." I started driving, but man, I was in a state. My mind was racing with questions, my heart was pounding, my hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I kept trying to find a logical explanation. I don't know, maybe it was a twin brother I never knew existed. Maybe it was just an absurd coincidence, a guy who looked too much like him. But the more I looked in the rearview mirror, the more certain I was. It was him. The same birthmark on his neck. The same small scar on his left eyebrow he'd had since he was a kid when he fell off his bike. The same gestures, the same way he ran his hand through his hair when he was nervous. We drove down the highway. Traffic was light at that hour. About 15 minutes of silent travel, me trying to process what was happening. Him messing with his phone and looking out the window as if it were a normal ride. But then, when we were passing over the river bridge, he said something that made me absolutely certain of who he was. Man, I still remember when we used to come fish down here when we were kids. You, me, and Charlie. Your mom always fried up the fish we caught. Man, my blood ran cold. No one else in the world knew that story. It was just the 3 of us. Charlie had moved to DC about 10 years ago, and my mom. Well, my mom died 5 years ago. That's when I couldn't take it anymore. I pulled the car over to the shoulder, turned on the hazard lights, and turned around to face him. "Robert, man, what the hell is this? You're dead. I went to your funeral." He was silent for a few seconds, slowly took off his cap, and ran a hand through his hair. The same old gesture he used when he was cornered. "Marcus, he said softly, and just saying my name confirmed everything. "I know you must be in shock, man, but I need you to listen to me. I can explain everything, but we need to get to the airport. My life depends on it." "Explain what, Robert? How do you explain being alive when I saw you being buried? How do you explain your wife crying like crazy at the cemetery? How do you explain—" "Marcus, stop." He cut me off, and for the first time, I realized he was scared. Genuinely scared. "I know it's hard to understand. I know you must think you've gone crazy, but I need to catch this flight. People are looking for me. Dangerous people. If they find me." He didn't finish the sentence, but the way he said it made me understand that this was serious. "What? People? Robert, what are you talking about?" Man, it's a long story. A really screwed up story. And I promise I'll tell you everything on the way. But we need to go. Please, man. For God's sake, we need to go. I looked at him through the rearview mirror. The Robert I knew was always calm, always in control of the situation. This guy was desperate. He had deep dark circles under his eyes. His hand was shaking as he held his phone, and he was sweating even with the air conditioning on. Robert, you have to tell me everything. Everything. Otherwise, I'm stopping this car right now and calling the cops. He sighed deeply. All right, Marcus, you have a right to know. But drive, please, drive, and I'll tell you the truth. The truth about how I died without dying. The truth about why I had to disappear. The truth about the mess I made. I started the car again, got back on the road, but man, I was a wreck inside. You know that feeling when you know your life is about to change forever, that you're about to find out something you'd rather not know. That's exactly what I was feeling. And look, folks, if you think this story is already crazy, just wait until I tell you what Robert told me in the next 20 minutes of the trip. Because what I thought was impossible was just the beginning of a plot that involved money, dangerous people, fake documents, and an entire family living a lie. Traffic was clear, but my heart was racing as if I were running a marathon. And as we got closer to the airport, I knew that after that night, nothing would ever be the same. Robert took a deep breath in the back seat and began. Marcus, do you remember those renovations I did at home 2 years ago? That new pool, the open concept kitchen, the landscaping, ... Double quotes, I remember. Well, none of that was paid for with my store salary. And that's when the most insane revelation I'd ever heard began. Man, I got screwed with online gambling. That's how, straight and simple, Robert began to tell me the truth. We were in the outskirts of town, still about 20 minutes from the airport, when he dropped that bomb. Gambling? I asked, in disbelief. What gambling? Robert, you never even bought a lottery ticket. Yeah, man. I didn't even believe it myself when things started getting out of control. It started small. You know, a few sports bets. I'd bet 50, $100. I'd win one, lose another. Normal stuff. He paused, ran a hand over his face as if he wanted to erase the memories. But then the pandemic came. I was stuck at home. The store closed for a few months, and man, I started gambling hard, really hard. Online casinos, sports betting, even online poker, I was playing. It was a real addiction. Marcus, I'd wake up and the first thing I'd do was open my phone to place a bet. I looked in the rearview mirror. Robert was crestfallen, nervously fidgeting with his hands. In 6 months, I lost everything. Everything. Marcus, the emergency savings, the money in the bank. I even cashed out my retirement fund. And when my money ran out, you borrowed. I finished. Worse, man. Much worse. I borrowed money from a loan shark. Man, I almost crashed the car when he said that. I slammed on the brakes, and a guy behind me honked angrily. What loan shark, Robert? How much? $200,000. Total silence. Just the sound of the engine and the air conditioning. $200,000 from a loan shark. The guy had dug his own grave. Robert, for God's sake, how could you ... Double quotes, I know. It was the biggest mistake of my life. But man, I was desperate. I already owed about 50 grand on my credit cards. Another 30 to the bank. Fern wasn't aware of any of it. And I thought I could win it all back with one sure bet. And did you? He gave a bitter laugh. I lost everything in 2 weeks. The $200,000 turned into dust in a series of crazy bets. And then, man, that's when things got serious. We were passing the entrance to the freeway when he continued. The loan shark was Batista. You know him, the guy who owns the bar on the corner of our street. He seems like a nice guy, always greeting everyone. But Marcus, the guy is dangerous as hell. He's connected to some really heavy hitters. I knew Batista, a friendly guy, always in a good mood. He also owned a butcher shop. I never suspected he lent money. When I said I couldn't pay, he was very clear. Either I came up with the money in 30 days, or he was going to collect in a different way. And it wasn't just for me, either. He said, if I didn't pay, he'd go after Fern too. Jesus Christ, Robert, ... That's when I completely panicked. Man, I started thinking of 1,000 ways to come up with 200 grand. I thought about selling the house, but it was still mortgaged. I thought about asking my family for a loan, but where was I going to get that kind of money? I even thought about robbing a bank. That's how desperate I was. He stopped talking for a few minutes. We were approaching the outskirts, and I could see he was reliving all the desperation. And then, one night, I was surfing the internet, looking for crazy solutions, when I found some forums. People talking about how to disappear, how to start a new life, how to fake your own death. At first I thought it was a joke, but man, there were tutorials for everything. You decided to fake your death because of a debt. It wasn't exactly a rational decision. Marcus, I was in a terrible mental state. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating right, I was constantly making up excuses to Fern about why I was acting weird. I was literally going insane. His voice started to crack. I realized the guy was really shaken up, reliving all this. And then I found a guy on the internet, a crazy dude who specialized in this. Faking deaths, creating new identities, disappearing off the map. He charged 50 grand for the complete package. 50 grand. You had that kind of money? No, man. but the guy accepted payment. And I thought, better 250 grand to some crazy guy on the internet than 200 grand to Batista. Man, the craziness of the situation was so much that I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Robert, how does that even work? How do you fake your own death? He sighed. It's simpler than it sounds. Man, first, you need an accident that doesn't leave a body. The guy told me to choose a car accident on the interstate. Near the river, a lot of people die that way, and the body is never found. But what about the car? And the witnesses? The car was a clunker I bought for 5 grand, with the papers in order. The plan was simple. In the middle of the night, I'd drive to the interstate, pull over in a deserted part, put my wallet, my phone, and some clothes in the car, then push the car down the embankment into the river. Dude, I was listening to this and it sounded like a movie script. And did it work? It worked perfectly. Man, I chose a dangerous curve on the interstate, where other similar accidents had happened before. 2 a.m., it was raining, no one on the road. I pushed the car, it went straight into the river, and I ran to hide. Hide? Where? In a motel in the suburbs, with a fake name. I stayed there for 2 weeks, waiting for things to calm down. The guy on the internet had already given me temporary documents with another name, Paul Robertson. Man, I was impressed with the level of planning. And Fern, did she know anything about this? Robert was silent for a few seconds, and when he answered, his voice was broken. No, Marcus. Fern didn't know anything. Not about the debt, not about the plan. She woke up the next day and found a note I left saying I'd gone out early to take care of some things. When the cops showed up at her door in the late afternoon to tell her my car had been found in the river. He couldn't continue. He started to cry softly in the back seat. Man, I watched my own funeral. I hid behind a tree at the cemetery and saw my wife crying hysterically. I saw my parents, my siblings, all our friends. I saw you holding the empty casket. Marcus, now, I was starting to understand the magnitude of the mess he'd made. Robert, how have you been living for these 2 years? With the fake ID, the guy on the internet was really good. He got me a social security number, driver's license, bank account, everything. I moved to a city out of state, got a job at a mechanic's shop, rented a studio apartment. I became Paul Robertson, mechanic, single, no family, and Batista. Did he stop collecting after you died? He did. For 2 years, no one came looking for me. I thought it had worked, that I was going to be able to live this new life. I even met a girl there, started dating her. Wait, you were cheating on Fern even though she thought you were dead. Robert hung his head, ashamed. Marcus, I know it was wrong, but man, I was trying to rebuild my life, and Fern, she was already moving on. I'd stalk her social media secretly. I saw she was going out again, meeting new people. Robert, she was grieving. Of course, she was going to try to move on eventually. I know. It was selfish of me. It was all wrong from the beginning. But Marcus, at the time, I was convinced it was for the best, that everyone would be happier with a dead Robert. We were arriving at the airport entrance. It was almost 4 a.m., and things were starting to get busy. So why are you running again? Robert, what happened? He looked out the window, saw the airport signs, and became visibly more nervous. 3 days ago, I was working at the shop when a client came in. A beautiful, well-dressed woman. She said her car's air conditioning was acting up. But when she got out of the car, Marcus, she was one of the people who works for Batista. Her name was Carla. How do you know? Because she talked to me. She called me by my real name, smiled and said, "Hi Robert, long time no see, huh?" And then she handed me a note. What note? Robert took a crumpled piece of paper out of his pants pocket and showed it to me. It was a simple sheet with one sentence written by hand. $200,000 turned into $300,000 in 2 years. You have 1 week to pay, or Fern will find out what kind of husband she had. Man, I felt a shiver just reading that. They found out where you were. They found out everything. Marcus, they know about the fake ID. They know where I live. They know where I work. And worst of all, they know Fern isn't to blame for any of this. But they'll go after her anyway if I don't pay. Now I was understanding his desperation. That's why you're running to the airport. Exactly. I bought a ticket to Mexico with the last of the money I had. I'm going to try to cross the border and disappear for good. Maybe from there, I can send some money to Fern without them finding out. We pulled into the airport parking lot. Robert looked at his watch. 4:15 a.m. Marcus, thanks for bringing me here. And I'm sorry for dropping this bomb on your life. I know you didn't deserve to have to hear all this. I stopped the car in front of the terminal but didn't turn it off. I kept looking at him through the rearview mirror. Robert, have you ever stopped to think that running again won't solve anything? That at some point, these guys are going to find you. And that, in the meantime, Fern will be in the line of fire. He was silent for a few seconds, his hand already on the door handle. And have you ever stopped to think that maybe there's a way to solve this without you having to be a ghost for the rest of your life? Robert looked at me with an expression of someone who had lost all hope. What way? Marcus, I don't have $300,000. I have no way of getting it. And if I go back to the city, these guys will kill me. Maybe they don't. Need to kill you? Robert? Maybe they need you alive. He frowned, not understanding. What are you talking about? That's when I had an idea. A crazy, dangerous idea. But maybe it was the only way out to get Robert out of that jam without him having to disappear forever. Sit back, Robert, cancel that trip. We're going to have a serious talk. Robert looked at me as if I'd gone crazy. Marcus, you don't get it? These guys will kill me if they find me. Robert, you're the one who doesn't get it, I said, turning off the engine. If you get on that plane, Fern is going to pay for what you did. And this time, she's going to find out the whole truth in the worst possible way. He stayed still, his hand still on the door handle. Besides that, man, 300 grand isn't an amount a loan shark forgives. They'll hunt you down even in hell if they have to. Mexico, Bolivia, wherever you go, they'll be right behind you. So you want me to turn myself in to die? No, Robert, I want you to tell me the whole truth because I have a feeling you're hiding something. And if we're going to fix this, it has to be with all the cards on the table. He let go of the door handle, sighed deeply, and leaned back in the seat. What truth, Marcus? I've already told you everything. Oh yeah, then explain something to me. How did Batista find out you were alive? Man, you changed cities, changed identities, went 2 years without a peep. How did they find you? Robert was silent for a few long seconds. I could see in his eyes that he was thinking about whether to tell me or not. It was because of Carla, he said finally. What Carla? The woman who showed up at the shop? No, Marcus. Another Carla. The Carla I met in the city out of state. The one I was dating. Man, the way he said it, I knew another bomb was coming. What about her? Robert ran both hands over his face, as if he wanted to hide. She wasn't who I thought she was. Marcus, she wasn't just some normal girl I met by chance. What do you mean? She was working for Batista from the beginning. She was planted in my life to watch me. Holy crap, this was so much dirtier than I imagined. Robert, are you telling me that for the last 2 years, you were being watched the whole time? No man up, not the whole time. In the first few months, I really did manage to disappear. But about 8 months ago, when I started to relax, when I thought I was safe, that's when I met Carla. He stopped, took a deep breath. We met at a bar. She came up to me, started a conversation, and seemed genuinely interested. She was beautiful, smart. She seemed to really like me. I started dating her thinking I'd found someone special. And when did you find out the truth? 3 days ago, when the other Carla showed up at the shop, she said something that made me understand everything. Your little girlfriend sends her regards. That's when it clicked. Damn, Robert ... yeah. Man, I was a complete idiot. I dated a spy for 8 months and didn't even notice. I told her about my life, about the old neighborhood. I even showed her a picture of Fern. I thought I was sharing my life with someone who loved me. The situation was getting more complex by the minute. But Robert, if they found you 8 months ago, why did they only come to collect now? That's the question I asked myself. Man, and I think I know the answer. What is it? Robert looked at the airport, saw the growing movement, and became visibly more nervous. They were waiting for me to fall in love for real, waiting for me to form connections, to have something to lose. Because now it's not just about the money, Marcus, it's about control. I didn't understand. How so? Batista doesn't just want the 300 grand. Man, he wants to use me. He found out I know about cars, that I understand mechanics, that I know how to create fake identity. He wants me to work for him. Now it was making more sense. Work as what? Stealing cars, altering VIN numbers, creating fake documents. The guy has a huge operation. Marcus, it's not just loan sharking. He's connected to car theft, receiving stolen goods, trafficking. It's a heavy operation. And if you don't accept, he kills Fern and Carla, both of them, and he makes me watch. Man, I felt a shiver just imagining that. Robert, are you sure the Carla from the other city is also in danger? Can't she just disappear? He shook his head. No, Marcus, she fulfilled her mission, but now she knows too much. And besides, besides what? Robert started to cry softly. Besides, I think I fell in love with her for real, even knowing it was all a lie, even knowing she betrayed me, I still feel something for her. Dude, at that moment, I thought, what a screwed up situation is this? The guy faked his own death to escape a debt, abandoned his wife, fell in love with a spy, and was now being blackmailed into working for organized crime. And on top of that, he felt guilty for everyone who might get hurt because of him. Robert, where's the note that Carla gave you? Let me see it again. He handed me the crumpled paper. I read it one more time, paying attention to the details. Man, there's something weird here. Look, $200,000 turned into $300,000 in 2 years. That doesn't make sense. Why not? Dude, you must know how loan shark interest works. 200 grand in 2 years, with the interest those guys charge, should turn into at least $1 million. Robert frowned, thinking, that's true. Loan shark interest is like 20-30% a month. Exactly. So why are they only charging 300 grand? Why didn't they charge anything for 2 years? That's not normal loan shark behavior, man. Robert was pensive. You think there's something else behind this? I'm sure of it, Robert. And there's one more weird thing. If they really wanted to find you, why didn't they go straight to Fern's house 2 years ago? Why didn't they pressure her from the beginning? Because they believed I was really dead. No, man, a professional loan shark doesn't believe in death without seeing a body. they investigate. And if Batista has a stolen car operation, he has connections with the cops. It would have been easy to find out there was no body in the river. The puzzle pieces started falling into place in Robert's head. So I think they knew you were alive from the beginning. Robert, they left you dead for a specific reason. What reason? That's when I had an insight. Robert, do you remember anything strange that happened around the time you faked your death? Something in the neighborhood, a crime, a situation that drew attention. He thought for a few minutes. Now that you mention it, remember old Mr. Anderson, who lived on the corner? The little old guy with the convenience store. He died a week after my accident. The guy said it was a heart attack, but at the time, I thought it was strange. He was in good health. Strange how? I was hiding at the motel in the suburbs, but I was still following the neighborhood news on Facebook. I saw when they posted about his death. But one thing caught my attention. He died the same morning I faked the accident. Man, a puzzle was forming in my head. Robert, do you remember if Mr. Anderson had any kind of relationship with Batista? If he bought things on credit at the bar? If they talked a lot? Not that I remember. But man, Mr. Anderson knew everyone in the neighborhood. He saw everything from the window of his store. Saw everything, including you leaving your house in the middle of the night of the accident. Robert's eyes widened. Holy crap. Marcus, I think Mr. Anderson saw you leaving your house alive the morning you supposedly died. And I think he might have told Batista about it. And Batista had him killed. Or Batista killed him himself. Man, to keep the secret. Robert turned pale. But why would he do that? Why didn't he expose me right away? Because, Robert, a dead man can't testify against anyone. Now he was completely lost. Testify about what? Man, think about it. Batista has a stolen car operation. He has people working for him. He kills people who know too much. Do you think this started after you disappeared? No. Then answer me. What could you have seen, as his neighbor, that he didn't want you to tell anyone? Robert was silent for a few minutes, clearly trying to remember something. Marcus, there's one night I'll never forget. About 3 months before I faked my death, I got home late from work, like 2 a.m., and I saw some guys unloading some heavy boxers at Batista's bar. Boxers of what? At the time, I thought it was beer, liquor. But now that you mention it, the boxers were too small for liquor, and the guys who were unloading them didn't look like normal suppliers. What do you mean? They were tattooed guys. They looked like criminals. And they were armed. Marcus, I saw the guns when they passed under the lamppost. Now I was sure we were on the right track. Robert, do you remember anything else strange? Unusual activity at the bar. Strange people hanging around. Man, now that you mention it, I remember that around that time, there were always some different cars parked in front of the bar. Nice cars, imports, but with license plates from other states. Stolen cars probably, and there's one more thing. Marcus, something I never connected the dots on. Tell me. A week after that night, I saw the unloading. A guy showed up at the store asking for me. He said he was a friend of Batista's and wanted to know if I did any extra work with cars. What kind of work? He didn't specify, but he offered a lot of money. He said if I took the job, I'd make more in a week than I made in a month at the store. And did you take it? No, man. At the time, I wasn't desperate with the gambling yet. I turned the guy down and didn't think about it again. Now I was starting to understand the whole scheme. Robert, listen to what I'm about to tell you and pay attention. Batista doesn't want you back because of the dead. He wants you back because you're a witness to a big operation, and he needs to control you. Control me how? Man, think about it. If you're officially dead, you can't go to the cops. You can't report him. You don't exist anymore. It's the perfect situation for him to use you as a slave. Robert began to understand the full scope of the trap he had fallen into. And if I run to Mexico, he kills Fern to punish you, and he hunts you until he finds you. Because now you're not just a debtor. Man, you're an important piece in his game. Robert leaned his head against the seat, completely defeated. Marcus, what do I do? There's no way out. Man, whatever I choose, some innocent person is going to get screwed. That's when I looked at my watch. 4:48 His flight was at 5. There is a way out. Robert, but you're going to have to trust me. What way? We're going to make Batista pay for what he did. Not just to you, but to Mr. Anderson, to Fern, to everyone he's ever hurt. Robert looked at me with a mix of hope and desperation. How? Marcus, by canceling that trip and going back to the city. But not to turn yourself in. To take down that son of a bitch once and for all. And that's when I realized I wasn't just helping a friend anymore. I was entering a war. Marcus, have you gone crazy? How are we going to take down Batista? The guy has connections with the cops. He has criminals working for him. He kills whoever he wants. Robert was visibly panicking at my suggestion. Calm down, man. I'm not talking about killing anyone. I'm talking about using his own trap against him. What trap? Robert, listen carefully. Batista made a huge mistake when he decided to keep you dead for these 2 years. He created evidence against himself. I started the car again and began to leave the airport. Where are you going? My flight. Forget the flight, man. We're going to fix this now, and I'll explain how. I took the airport exit and started heading back to the city. Robert was restless in the back seat. Marcus, for God's sake, explain this plan to me. Okay, let's break it down. First, Batista killed Mr. Anderson to hide the fact that you were alive. Right? Probably. Second, he put a spy to watch you in the other city. Right, Carla? Yeah? Third, he has a stolen car operation, receiving stolen goods, and probably trafficking. So far, so good. But double quotes. Robert, man, Batista isn't untouchable. He's a dumb criminal who left a huge trail. We just need to gather the evidence and hand it over to the right person. Robert was silent for a few minutes, thinking. But Marcus, even if we can prove all that, what about Fern's situation? And Carla's? If the guy realizes he's being investigated, that's the thing. Robert, we're not going to investigate in secret. We're going to force his hand. How? I pulled into a gas station on the interstate. It was 5 a.m. and things were starting to get busy. Get out here. Let's get some coffee, and I'll explain it to you properly. We went into the gas station diner. Robert was nervous, looking all over as if someone might recognize him. Relax, man. At this hour, it's just truckers and early birds here. We ordered 2 coffees and some donuts. Robert could barely eat. Just tell me the plan. Marcus, all right? Listen carefully. Batista's problem is that he needs you alive to work for him, but he also needs to keep you a secret because you're a witness to his crimes. And that creates a weak point. Man, he can't hurt you because he needs you, and he can't expose you because if they find out you're alive, they'll investigate how you survived, and then his whole operation will come to light. Robert was starting to understand. You want to use that against him. Exactly. But first, we need to make sure Fern and Carla are safe. How? I took my phone out of my pocket. Robert, do you have Carla's phone number? I do. But call her now. Marcus, it's 5A.M. Even better. If she answers, it's because she's awake. And if she's awake, it's because she's worried. Robert took his phone with a shaking hand. What do I say to her? The truth. Tell her you found out who she is, but that you don't hold a grudge. And ask her if she wants to get out of this life. What if it's a trap? Robert, man, think about it. If it were a trap, they wouldn't have given you a week to pay. They would have kidnapped you directly. The fact that they're giving you a deadline means they need your voluntary cooperation. Robert dialed the number. It rang 3 times before someone answered. Hello, it was a female voice, clearly awake. Carla, it's Robert. Silence on the other end. Robert, you shouldn't be calling me. Carla, I know who you are. I know you were working for Batista. I know it was all a lie. Robert, Listen, Carla, I'm not calling to fight with you. I'm calling because I want to help you. Do you want to get out of this life? Do you want to get out of this life? More silence. Then, she started crying softly. Robert, you don't understand. They'll kill me if I leave. They won't. Carla, because we're going to take them down first. But I need to know. Do you want to be truly free? Of course I do. Robert, but how? Where are you right now? In my city, at my house. Carla, listen carefully. Pack your most important thing. Get in your car and come to the city. Now. Robert, are you crazy? If they see me leaving town, they won't see you. It's 5 a.m. No one is watching you right now. Besides, they don't expect you to run. In their minds, you're on their side. Robert looked at me, asking for confirmation. I gave him a positive nod. Carla, trust me for the first time for real. I'll protect you, but I need you to come to the city. And where are we going to meet? Robert looked at me again. At the city mall, I said softly. The parking garage, 9A.M. City mall. Parking garage, 9 o'clock. Robert repeated. Robert, what if it's a setup? It's not a setup. Carla, if it were, I wouldn't be running. I'd be forced to go back. She thought about it. Okay, I'll go. But Robert, if this goes wrong, it won't go wrong. And Carla, yeah, thanks for sticking with me these past few months, even if it was a job. Some of those moments were real, weren't they? Her voice got choked up. They were, Robert, they were real. She hung up. Robert put his phone away, visibly emotional. And now, he asked, now we fix Fern's situation. How? I looked at my watch. 5:20 a.m. Robert, does Fern still live in the same house? She does. I'd stalk her social media. Remember, does she work at the same place? She does, at the vet clinic downtown. What time does she leave home? Around 7:30. Why? Because we're going to intercept her before she gets to work, and we're going to tell her the whole truth. Robert turned pale. Marcus, I can't show up to Fern. She'll have a stroke. She will bet it's better for her to have a stroke seeing you alive than to have a stroke from getting beaten up by Batista's thugs. The logic was irrefutable, but Robert was clearly terrified. Man, how? Am I going to explain to her that I faked my death? How am I going to tell her I abandoned her to escape a debt? With the truth, Robert, and by asking for forgiveness, and by showing her that now you want to fix things the right way. He was silent for a few minutes, stirring his coffee without drinking it. Marcus, are you sure this plan is going to work? Because if it goes wrong, we're putting 3 people at risk. Me, Fern, and Carla. Robert, you want the truth? I'm not sure of anything, but I know that running won't solve it, and I know that the three of you will live the rest of your lives in fear if we don't fix this now. He sighed deeply. And what's the full plan? After we talk to Fern and meet up with Carla, then we go to the police, but not to a regular precinct. We go straight to the Internal Affairs office. Why Internal Affairs? Because if Batista has an operation with regular cops, he doesn't have an operation with Internal Affairs. They investigate corrupt cops. It's the safest place to report this. Robert seemed to consider the idea. And what exactly are we going to report? Everything, man. The murder of Mr. Anderson, the stolen car operation, extortion, criminal organization, and the main thing, the use of fake documents to cover up crime. Fake documents. Robert, where do you think those documents you bought to become Paul Robertson were made? At a bakery. Someone inside the system created those documents. And if the guy who sold you the fake ID works for Batista, ... double quotes. Robert's eyes widened. Holy crap. Marcus, the guy who sold me the new identity could be the same guy who makes fake documents for Batista's stolen car operation. Exactly. And if he is, we have the missing link to prove that this whole story is connected. Robert started to get excited for the first time that night. Man, this could actually work. It can. But look, there's one condition. From now on, no more lies. Not to me, not to Fern, not to Carla, not to the police. Everything has to be the truth. Deal. And there's one more thing, Robert. Yeah, after all this is over, you're going to have to rebuild your life from scratch. You're going to have to explain to everyone how you came back from the dead. You're going to have problems with the IRS, with Social Security, with everything. It's going to be a bureaucratic nightmare. I know, man, but it's better than living on the run forever. And you're going to have to decide if you want to be with Fern or Carla, because both of them know about the other now. Robert sighed. One thing at a time. First, we take care of the Batista situation. Then I'll think about my love life. We finished our coffee. It was 5:40 a.m. Traffic was starting to get heavier. Well, let's go. Let's intercept Fern. We got back in the car. Robert was visibly nervous, but more determined than before. Marcus, just one more question. Yeah, why are you doing this for me? Why didn't you just hand me over to Batista and stay out of this mess? I looked at him through the rearview mirror. You know what? I thought about it. I thought about leaving you at the airport and leaving as if nothing had happened. And why didn't you? Because, Robert, I've been through a lot of crap in my life too. I've had times when I needed help and didn't get it. And when you have a chance to help someone, even if it's risky, you have to help, because that's what makes us human. Robert was touched. Thanks, man. Really. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when all this is over, and everyone is alive and safe. We left the gas station and headed for the old neighborhood. On the way, I was thinking, man, what did I get myself into? But at the same time, I knew I was doing the right thing. And look, folks, if you've been following this story so far, it's because you know that sometimes life puts us in situations that test our character. Moments where you have to decide between the safe and the right, between the easy and the just. That morning was going to be one of those moments for all of us. When we got to the old neighborhood, it was already 6:30. We had an hour to intercept Fern before she went to work. Robert, I said, last chance to back out. Are you sure you want to do this? He took a deep breath, looked out the window at the house he lived in with Fern, and said, I'm sure. Let's end this. But what we didn't know was that Batista was already 3 steps ahead of us, and that morning was going to be a lot more dangerous than we imagined. I parked the car 2 blocks away from Fern's house. It was 6:50 a.m., and I felt that something was wrong in the air. You know that feeling, when you get the sense that you're being watched. Robert, do you see anything strange on the street? He looked all around. I don't know, man. There are some cars I don't recognize, but that could be normal. It's been 2 years since I've been here. What's Fern's routine? Does she always leave at the same time? Always, 7:30 sharp, and always out the front door, straight to the bus stop. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw a black sedan with 2 guys inside, parked about 5 houses behind us. I didn't like it. Robert, don't look now, but there's a black sedan behind us with 2 guys inside. Do you know them? Robert adjusted the side mirror slowly and took a discreet peek. Holy crap, Marcus, it's Tony and Baldy. They work for Batista. My blood ran cold. How do they know we're here? I don't know, man, but that means ... that they already know you didn't take the flight. I finished, and that they're waiting for you to show up here. Robert started to panic. Marcus, we need to get out of here. Now calm down. Man, if we run now, they'll go after Fern. We need to get her out of the house first. How? They'll see us if we get close. I thought quickly. 7 a.m., Fern was going to leave in half an hour. Robert, do you have Fern's cell phone number? No, man. I never called her in these 2 years. How would I have it? Think, man. Neighbor, relative, someone who can warn her. Robert was silent for a few seconds, thinking. There's Mrs. Wilson, the neighbor on the right. She and Fern have always been friends. Do you have her number? No, but I know where she lives. The blue house, next to Fern's. I looked at the black sedan. The 2 guys were alert, but they hadn't realized that we had seen them. Okay, Listen to what we're going to do. You're going to get out here and go down the back alley to Mrs. Wilson's house. Knock on the door, explain the situation to her, and ask her to warn Fern that there's danger. Tell her not to leave the house today. And you, I'll stay here, pretending I'm waiting for someone. If the guys in the sedan move, I'll let you know on the phone. Robert took a deep breath, grabbed his phone. Give me your number so I can call you if I need to. We quickly exchanged contacts. Robert, be careful. If you see the guys get out of the car, run. Don't try to be a hero. What about you? I'll back out and go the other way. We'll meet at the coffee shop on the corner of the back alley. Robert opened the door slowly, got out half-crouched, and walked down the sidewalk as if he were a normal resident leaving for work. I kept watching the sedan in the rearview mirror. The guys didn't move until my phone rang. It was Robert. Marcus, we have a problem. What? Problem? Mrs. Wilson is dead. Man, there's a for sale sign on her house. Damn. Plan B. Okay, come back. We're going to have to take a risk. Come back. How? Marcus, the guys will see me. I looked around, searching for a solution. That's when I saw something that made me understand how Batista had found out we were there. Robert, where exactly are you? In the alley behind Fern's house. Can you see her house from there? I can. Why? Because, my friend, we were really stupid. Look at the lamppost in front of her house. Silence for a few seconds. Holy crap, Marcus. There's a camera on the lamppost. Exactly, and I bet it's not the city's. Robert was starting to understand. They were watching Fern's house this whole time, and they probably saw us coming. That's why the thugs were already here. Marcus, that means they've known I was alive for longer than we thought. It does, and it also means that Fern might already be being threatened. At that moment, I saw the door to Fern's house open. She came out, but not alone. There was a guy behind her, a guy I didn't know, but who clearly wasn't there to protect her. Robert, Fern just left the house, and there's a guy with her. What guy? I don't know, but she's scared. You can see it in her body language. Holy crap, they already got her. At that moment, the black sedan's engine turned on. Robert, the guys in the sedan are moving. I think they're going to follow Fern. We have to do something. I'm calling the cops? No, Marcus, if you call the cops now, they'll kill Fern on the spot. He was right, and I was in an impossible situation. That's when my phone rang, unknown number. Hello, Marcus. It was a voice I didn't know. Who is this? My name is Batista. I think you know a friend of mine. Robert. I felt a shiver down my spine. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you do. Marcus, in fact, I'm watching both of you on my phone screen. Security cameras are a wonderful thing, aren't they? I looked at the lamppost. The camera was pointed directly at my car. What do you want? I want a civilized conversation with both of you. And to make sure that conversation happens, I brought a guarantee. What guarantee? Fern, she's here beside me, very much alive and well. And she'll stay that way if you do exactly what I tell you. My heart pounded. Where do you want us to meet? At my bar. Both of you, unarmed, without your phones. 15 minutes. And if we don't go, Fern is going to find out in person how I collect debts. Marcus, and it's not going to be a pleasant experience. The call ended. I called Robert immediately. Robert, change of plans. Batista has Fern. What? He just called me? He wants us to go to his bar in 15 minutes. It's a trap. Marcus, of course, it's a trap. But if we don't go, he kills Fern. Robert was silent for a few seconds. Man, if we go to his bar, he'll kill all of us. And Fern, too. Robert, do you have a better idea? I do. What? We call Carla and tell her to go straight to the police with the recording of the call she has on her phone. What recording? Man, Carla was working as a spy for Batista. You think she didn't record the conversations? It was her security. Holy crap, that was true. And where is she now? She must be getting close to the city. I'll call her. Robert called Carla. She answered on the first ring. Robert, thank God. I'm almost in the city, but some cars are following me on the highway. Carla, listen carefully. They got Fern, and they want me and Marcus to go to Batista's bar. Robert, don't go. It's a trap. We know. That's why I need you to do one thing. Go straight to the Police Internal Affairs Office, Main Street, 1632. And what do I say there? Everything. Tell them about Batista's operation, about me, about Fern, and show them the recordings you have on your phone. Silence on the other end. Carla, you have recordings, don't you? I do. Robert, I have recordings of everything. It was my protection. Then take everything to Internal Affairs and tell them that 2 people have been kidnapped. I and Marcus will be at Batista's bar and Fern is being held hostage. Robert, what if they get there and you're already dead? Then you'll have to keep living. Carla, and you'll have to make sure our death wasn't in vain. Carla started to cry. Robert, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. I know, baby, and I forgive you. Now go. Run to Internal Affairs. He hung up and came running to the car. So, what's the plan? He asked, getting in the car. The plan is simple. Robert, we go to Batista's bar and try to buy time until the cops get there. And how do we buy time? By making him talk, confessing his crimes. If he's going to kill us anyway, at least he'll brag about it first. That's if Carla can make it to Internal Affairs. She will. She has to. I started the car and began to drive towards Batista's bar. It was 7:15 a.m. 15 minutes to get there. Marcus, are you scared? Robert asked. I am, man, very scared. But you know what? I'd rather die trying to do the right thing than live knowing I gave up on someone. Robert was touched. Man, if we don't make it out of this alive, we're going to make it. Robert, we have to. But deep down, I knew the chances were slim. Batista wasn't going to leave any witnesses alive, and the only hope we had was for Carla to make it to the police. In time, when I parked in front of Batista's bar, I saw that it was closed, but there was movement inside. Several cars out front, some that I recognized as belonging to the thugs. Robert, last chance, do you want to try to run? No, Marcus. If we run now, Fern dies, and I won't be able to live with that on my conscience. We got out of the car. The street was empty, just us and the criminals' cars. We walked to the bar's door. Before knocking, Robert looked at me. Marcus, thanks for everything, man. You're a true friend. It's not over yet. Robert, we knocked on the door. It opened immediately, and that's when we saw the true extent of the problem we had gotten ourselves into. The inside of Batista's bar was very different from what I had imagined. It wasn't just a regular bar. There was a room in the back that looked like an office, with computers, printers, and a bunch of documents scattered on the tables. And there were at least 6 armed guys waiting for us. Robert, so, good to see you, man. Batista opened his arms as if to greet a dear friend. 2 years without a peep. I thought you were dead. He let out a sarcastic laugh. He was a man in his 50s, pot-bellied, bald, with a scar on his face. Nothing like the friendly image he projected in the neighborhood. Where's Fern? Robert asked directly. She's fine. She's fine. Having a little coffee in the back, Batista said, pointing to a door in the back. A polite woman. You know, she didn't even scream. When we explained the situation to her. What situation? I asked. Batista looked at me as if he had just realized I existed. Ah, you must be Marcus, the kind-hearted Uber driver who decided to help his friend. He made a sneering expression. Man, you should have stayed out of this. Now you're our problem too. I just brought him back to settle his debt. I lied. Debt? Batista laughed even louder. Marcus, you think this is about debt? I looked at Robert, who was pale. It's not. Of course, it's not. You idiot. 300 grand is pocket change to me. What Robert owes me isn't money. Then what is it? Batista approached Robert, getting very close to his face. Robert, did you tell your friend what you saw that night? 3 months before you died. Robert was silent. No. Then I'll tell him. Batista turned to me. This Robert here saw me and my partners unloading some boxes at the bar. Boxers full of pure cocaine, straight from Colombia. Damn, international. Trafficking. But that's not all he saw, is it, Robert? Robert remained silent. He saw us killing the supplier. Now I understood. Robert wasn't just a witness to trafficking, he was a witness to murder. Is that why you killed Mr. Anderson? I asked. Very smart. Marcus, exactly. The old man saw Robert leaving his house the morning of the accident. He was going to tell everyone that Robert was alive, so I had to take care of the problem. You killed an innocent man. I did. And you know how many other innocent people I've killed? Marcus, I've lost count. Batista walked over to the table full of documents. But let me show you why you're never going to leave here alive. He grabbed a folder and showed it to us. You know what this is? These are documents, social security numbers, driver's licenses, birth certificates, all faked. And you know, for who? He opened the folder. It had hundreds of documents with different photos, but all with fake information. For the cartels, for corrupt politicians, for everyone who needs to disappear or create a new identity. Robert's eyes widened. You're the one who made my fake document. Of course. You think it was a coincidence? Man, you looked for a fake ID on the internet and stumbled upon my operation. I sold you the documents knowing exactly who you were. But why? Because, Robert, you alive and in hiding were much more useful than you actually dead. With you officially dead, I could use your original identity for other things. What things? Batista smiled wickedly. Money laundering. Man, for the last 2 years, the dead Robert has moved more than $5 million in dummy accounts. He was a partner in 15 shell companies, bought and sold dozens of stolen cars. He even bought an apartment. Now I was understanding the full scale of this, and if he came back to life officially, Exactly, Marcus. If Robert came back from the dead, the IRS would want to know how a dead person moved $5 million. They'd investigate everything. And then, bye-bye to my operation. Batista picked up a newspaper from the table. It was even in the paper. Look, Operation Ghost investigates suspicious activity of deceased individuals. He showed us the headline. It was real. And when they go to investigate the dead Robert, they'll find out he's alive. And when they find out he's alive, they'll want to know who made the fake documents. And when they find out who made the fake documents, they get to you. I finished. Exactly. That's why both of you have to die today. And Fern too. Fern has nothing to do with this. She does. Robert, she's your official widow. If both of you turn up truly dead now, she'll inherit everything, including the shell companies. And then she'll become a suspect too. The guy's coldness was terrifying. He had thought of everything. But I have a proposition for you. Batista continued. What proposition? Robert asked. You can choose how you're going to die. Fast and painless, or slow and with a lot of pain. And Fern will die with you. But if you cooperate, I promise she won't suffer. It was at that moment that we heard police sirens in the distance. Batista frowned. What's that noise? The sirens were getting closer. Baldy, Batista yelled at one of the thugs. Go see what's happening on the street. Baldy went to the window and looked out. Batista, there are police cars arriving. How many? A lot, boss. And there's a SWAT van, too. Batista got nervous for the first time. How did they find out where we are? Robert and I exchanged a look. Carla had made it to internal affairs. Q. Batista pointed at us. You set this up. We didn't set anything up. I lied. We came here alone. Lies. The siren stopped in front of the bar. We heard a loudspeaker. This is the police. The area is surrounded. Come out with your hands up. Batista panicked. Baldy, Tony, he yelled at the thugs. Get the woman from the back. We'll use her as a shield to get out the back. No need, said a female voice from the back door. It was Fern, but she wasn't being carried by anyone. She was walking alone, and behind her, Carla. It was the Carla from the other city. But how was she here? Hi, Robert, Carla said calmly. I missed you. Carla, how did you get here before the cops? I asked. It was Batista who answered, with a bitter laugh, because she never went to internal affairs. Marcus, she came straight here. Robert was confused. What do you mean? Carla smiled, a cold, calculating smile. Robert, honey, you really thought I was going to betray Batista for you? After 8 months of pretending to love you. Carla, ... I called Batista as soon as I hung up with you. I told him everything. Your plan, the idea of going to internal affairs, everything. The betrayal was like a punch to the gut. So the cops outside, they're not cops, Robert, Batista said, laughing. They're my men dressed up as cops. Real sirens are easy to get. Damn, we had fallen into a perfect trap. But wait, there's more. Carla continued. Robert, do you remember me telling you I had compromising recordings of Batista? I remember. Lies. The only recordings I have are of you. 8 months of recordings of you confessing that you faked your own death, that you abandoned your wife, that you owe money to a loan shark. Robert sat down in a chair, devastated. And you know what's even better, baby? I sent those recordings to Fern a week ago. She knows everything. I looked at Fern. She had an expression I had never seen on anyone before. A mixture of hatred, disgust, and deep sadness. It's true, Robert, Fern said with a broken voice. I know you faked your death. I know about the debt. I know you abandoned me and went to live with another woman. Fern, I can explain, ... You don't need to explain anything, she screamed. You made me mourn your death for 2 years. I went to your funeral, Robert. I cried at your empty grave. Her tears were pure rage. You know what the worst part was, Robert? Finding out that while I was grieving, you were building a new life with someone else. While I was selling my wedding earrings to pay off your credit card debts, you were having fun in the other city. Fern, forgive me. Forgive. She laughed bitterly. Robert, I forgave you when I thought you had died in an accident. But finding out that you chose to abandon me, ... That, I will never forgive. Batista was loving the drama. How touching, isn't it? A family reunion. That's when Fern turned to him. And you, Batista, you think I don't know. You killed Mr. Anderson. Batista stopped smiling. What are you talking about, Fern? Mr. Anderson was my friend. Batista, he told me about the boxes you were unloading at the bar, and about what you did to the supplier. Now it was Batista's turn to be in shock. He told you. He did. The day before he died. He said he was scared, that he had seen things he shouldn't have. Fern walked over to the table full of documents. And you know what else? For the last 8 days, since I found out Robert was alive, I did my own investigation. I found out about the money laundering, about the fake documents, about everything. She grabbed a folder from the table, including this here. She opened the folder. It had photos of Batista killing the Colombian supplier. How did you get these photos? Batista yelled. Fern smiled for the first time, from the security camera on the building across from your bar. Batista, Mr. Anderson wasn't the only one who saw everything. That's when we heard the real sound, real sirens, much closer, and someone shouting on a loudspeaker. Federal police, the area is surrounded. This time, it was real. And Fern, even though she was betrayed and hurt, had set up the operation to catch Batista. Holy crap, Batista screamed, pulling out a gun. You screwed me over. But when he pointed the gun at Fern, Robert threw himself in front of her. No. The shot echoed through the bar. And that's when I realized that the story was far from over. Man, you have no idea how my heart was pounding at that moment. You know when you see a situation that can completely change the lives of everyone involved. When you realize that the next few seconds will decide who lives and who dies. That's exactly what was happening. And what happened after that shot? Well, you're about to find out. There was still a lot more to be revealed about this whole story. The shot hit Robert in the left shoulder. He fell to the floor, but he was conscious, groaning in pain. Fern screamed and knelt down to help him. Despite all the anger she felt, Robert cried. Batista pointed the gun at her again. Get away from him. But before he could fire a second shot, we heard an explosion at the front door. The federal police had broken down the entrance. Batista, a voice shouted from outside. You have 30 seconds to come out with your hands up. The guy was surrounded, screwed, but he didn't seem willing to give up. Baldy, Tony, he yelled at the thugs, grab Robert and Fern. We're going to get out the back, using them as a shield. But then something happened that no one expected. Carla, who until then had been on Batista's side, suddenly pulled out a gun and pointed it at him. Nobody's leaving here, Batista. Carla, what the hell is this? Sorry, boss. Change of plans. Man, I didn't understand anything anymore. Carla had betrayed Robert, then she had betrayed Batista. Are you crazy? Batista yelled. No, Batista, I'm being smart. She kept the gun pointed at him, but looked at me. Marcus, get that folder on the table. The one with the photos. What folder? The folder that Fern brought, with the photos of the murder. I grabbed the folder, still not understanding what was going on. Now get that other folder too, the one with the fake documents. I grabbed the second folder. Carla, what are you doing? Robert asked, still on the floor, holding his bleeding shoulder. Robert, I lied to you about a lot of things, but there's one thing I didn't lie about. I fell in love with you for real. Carla, ... And when you fall in love with someone for real, you don't let that person die, even if you have to betray everyone. That's when she explained the real plan. Robert, you think I called Batista to what? To turn you in. You didn't. I did. But not to turn you in. I called to make sure both of you got here alive. It was starting to click. You set all this up. I did. Together with Fern. Fern is in on this. It was Fern herself who answered, while she made a makeshift bandage for Robert with a cloth she found in the bar. Marcus, Carla came to me a week ago. She told me everything. About Robert being alive, about Batista's operation, about the recordings she had. But you didn't hate each other. At first, yes, Fern admitted. When I found out my husband was alive and living with another woman, I wanted to kill them both. And what changed? Carla showed me the recordings, Marcus, and they weren't just the recordings of Robert confessing that he faked his death. They were recordings of Batista ordering the death of Mr. Anderson, ordering other murders, talking about the money laundering scheme. Carla continued to point the gun at Batista, who was quiet, trying to understand what was happening. Fern and I made a deal. Marcus, she would help me get out of the life of crime, and I would help her get justice for Mr. Anderson. And how did you know we were going to fall into the trap? Because both of you are predictable, Fern said with a half smile. I knew Robert would try to protect me, even after everything he did. And I knew you, Marcus, would try to help a friend. And the federal police, how did you get in contact with them? The photos I showed of the supplier's murder weren't from a security camera, Fern explained. Carla took those photos. She had been documenting everything for months, creating evidence against Batista. Carla confirmed. Marcus, I wasn't just a spy. I was an undercover federal agent. Codename Agent Carolina. Man, my head exploded. You're a cop. I am. The operation to catch Batista has been planned for 2 years. And when Robert showed up in my life, I saw the perfect opportunity. Robert, even though he was injured, was in shock. Carla, ... I mean, Carolina, ... You're a federal agent. I am, honey. And I'm sorry for lying to you. But it was the only way to protect you and get enough evidence to take down Batista's organization. Batista, who had been quiet, listening to everything, finally exploded. You think you got me? I have connections in the police. I know who you are. You did, Carolina corrected. Your contacts in the police were already arrested yesterday morning. A simultaneous operation in 12 cities. Batista's face changed. Completely impossible. Batista, you think we set up this operation just to catch you? Man, you were just one piece of a much bigger scheme. At that moment, the federal agents entered the bar. There were about 10 agents, all armed and wearing vests. Agent Carolina. One of them shouted, "Is the situation under control?" "It is, Captain Miller." The captain approached us. "Excellent work. Carolina, did you get all the evidence?" She pointed to the folders I was holding. Fake documents, photos of the murders. And what's more, Robert here can testify about the murder of Mr. Anderson. The captain looked at Robert. "Are you Robert Mendonca, the one who supposedly died 2 years ago?" "That's me," Robert replied, still a little dazed from the wound. "Son, you have a lot to explain. But first, let's take care of that wound." 2 paramedics entered the bar and began to attend to Robert. "Is he going to be okay?" Fern asked, worried despite everything. "He will," one of the paramedics replied. "The shot didn't hit anything vital. It just went through the muscle." While they were taking care of Robert, Captain Miller arrested Batista and the thugs. "Batista de Souza," he said, putting handcuffs on the guy. "You are under arrest for international drug trafficking, money laundering, criminal organization, aggravated murder, and about 15 other crimes that I'm not even going to list right now." Batista didn't say anything. He was defeated. "And you," the captain turned to me and Fern, "you'll have to come with us to give your statements." "Are we under arrest?" I asked. "No, you're witnesses, but there's a lot to clear up." While they were taking Batista and the thugs away, Carolina approached me. "Marcus, thank you." "For what?" "For helping Robert. If you hadn't done that, he would have taken that flight, and we would have never been able to arrest Batista." "But hadn't you planned everything?" We had planned several possibilities, but the best one was exactly this. Robert voluntarily coming back to the city with a friend who could also testify. You used me. We did, but for a just cause, Marcus. And if it's any consolation, you saved a lot more lives than you can imagine. What do you mean? Batista wasn't just killing for money. He was planning to expand his operation into human trafficking. Children. Marcus. We intercepted conversations of him talking about that. I felt a shiver down my spine. Jesus. Yeah, you helped stop it. Monster Robert was taken away in the ambulance, but before he left, he called Fern. Fern, I know you'll never forgive me, and I don't deserve forgiveness, but I want you to know that I never stopped loving you. Fern was silent for a few seconds. Robert, what you did was unforgivable. You made me suffer in a way I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. I know, but, she continued, I'm not going to let you die, and I'm not going to let you go to jail for something that wasn't entirely your fault. Fern, when you get out of the hospital, we're going to have a talk, a real talk. No lies, no secrets. And then we'll decide if there's still anything between us. Robert started to cry. You would give me a second chance. Robert, everyone deserves a second chance. Even you. The ambulance left. Carolina came to say goodbye to us. Marcus, Fern, you were fundamental. Without you, this operation wouldn't have worked. And now, Carolina, I asked, what happens to you and Robert? She smiled sadly. Marcus, Robert and I lived a lie. He thought I was Carla, a criminal. I knew he was Robert, a fugitive. We fell in love with people who didn't really exist, but the feeling was real. But you can't build a relationship on a lie. Even if the lie was necessary, you're not going to try. No, Marcus, he needs to get his life straight first, and I need to continue being a police officer. Maybe one day, in the future, when everything calms down. She didn't finish the sentence. And you, Fern, I asked, what are you going to do? I'm going to help Robert with his situation with the IRS, with Social Security, with all the bureaucracy of officially coming back from the dead. It's the right thing to do. And after that, we'll see. Maybe we'll try to rebuild our marriage. Maybe not. But at least now there won't be any more lies between us. We left the bar. The street was full of police cars, an ambulance, the press. It was a circus. Marcus, Fern called to me. Thank you for everything. I'm the one who should thank you for letting me be a part of this craziness. You saved my husband, Marcus. Even though he didn't deserve it, you saved him. I looked at the whole scene. The cops collecting evidence, the criminals being taken away, the journalists filming everything. Fern, do you think it was worth it? All this suffering, all this confusion. She thought for a few seconds. You know what, Marcus? I think so. Because now, for the first time in 2 years, I know the truth. And even if the truth is painful, it's better than a lie. I nodded in agreement. And now, what do? Now, we go to the police station to give our statements. After that, we go to the hospital to see how Robert is doing. And after that, double quotes. After that, we're going to try to live a normal life. We both laughed. After everything that had happened, the idea of a normal life seemed almost impossible. But it was a start. 6 months later, man, I never thought a late-night ride would change my life so much. But here I am, 6 months later, telling this story to you, and still trying to process everything that happened. Robert spent 3 days in the hospital because of the shot. When he got out, he had to face the biggest bureaucracy of his life, explaining to the IRS, Social Security, courts, and a dozen other public offices how a dead person came back to life. It was a nightmare, man. The lawyer Fern hired said he had never seen a case like it. Robert had to pay back all the benefits Fern had received as a widow. He had to explain every single cent that was moved in his fake identity. He had to pay fines to every single office. But you know what? He paid everything correctly. He sold the apartment where he lived with Fern. He sold the car. He sold everything that had value. He was left with nothing, but at least he was free. Batista's trial was a spectacle. The guy got 42 years in prison. International trafficking. 5 proven murders, including Mr. Anderson's, money laundering, corruption, criminal organization. The prosecutor said that if there was a death penalty in the country, Batista would be a candidate. His thugs also got what they deserved. Baldy got 20 years. Tony, 15. About 10 corrupt cops from various precincts were arrested. It was a clean sweep. And me, man, I became a key witness in Operation Ghost. I gave a statement about 15 times, participated in reconstructions. I even appeared on a national news show with my voice disguised. Of course, my most famous ride ever. But let me tell you what happened to everyone else. Robert has changed a lot in these 6 months. He got a job at a mechanic's shop, ironically, the same profession he had in the other city. He's living in a rented studio apartment in a new neighborhood, and he's in therapy twice a week. Therapy was Fern's idea. She said, Robert, if you want a second chance, you have to understand why you did all this, and you have to make sure you never do it again. He's completely stopped gambling. He joined Gamblers Anonymous, blocked all gambling sites on his phone. He even transferred his salary directly to Fern's account for her to manage. At first, I thought it was overkill, but Robert explained to me, Marcus's addiction is like alcoholism. You never stop being an addict. You just learn to control the disease. And to control it, sometimes you need outside help. Fern, man, she's a different person. Stronger, more independent. She went back to school. She's doing a law degree at night. She opened her own vet clinic with the money from Robert's life insurance, which she had to pay back, but she got a loan. And the best part, she became an activist. She created a non-profit to help families of missing people. The name is the Anderson Institute, in honor of the neighbor who was murdered. About her relationship with Robert, well, they're trying. They haven't moved back in together yet, but they see each other twice a week. They do couples therapy. They go out to talk. They're rebuilding trust slowly. Marcus, she told me once, love isn't just a feeling. It's also a choice. Every day you choose to love or not to love. I'm choosing to give love another chance. Carolina continued to be a federal agent. She got a promotion and now coordinates operations against international trafficking. She ran into me about 2 months ago at a mall and we talked. Marcus, do you have any news about Robert? She asked. I do. He's doing well. Why don't you ask him yourself? Because it would be complicated for everyone. He needs to get things straight with Fern, and I need to continue my career. But you really liked each other. We did. But sometimes love isn't enough. Marcus, sometimes the timing is wrong. The circumstances don't help. She looked sad saying that. Carolina, can I ask you something? Of course. If the circumstances were different, if you had met in another way, Ah, Marcus, she smiled. That's a question I ask myself every day. But there's no point in dwelling on what ifs, is there? Life is what it is. Before leaving, she asked me for a favor. If you talk to Robert, tell him that I cherish the good memories we had, and that I'm rooting for him to be happy. And me, man, things got interesting for me. After the whole story came out in the press, I became a mini celebrity. The Uber driver who helped bust an international gang. I got offers to write a book, to give talks, even to make a movie about my life. I didn't accept any of it. You know why? Because I realized the story wasn't mine. It was Robert's, Fern's, Carolina's. I was just the guy who was in the right place at the right time. But one thing did change in my life. I stopped being an Uber driver. Seriously, after that night, I couldn't pick up a late-night ride anymore without being paranoid. Every time someone got in my car, I'd imagine what crazy story the person was going to tell me. So I used the money I earned from the TV interviews to take a mechanics course. Now I work at the same shop as Robert. We've become work partners, and what's even better, we've become true friends. Marcus, he told me last week, I'll never be able to repay you for what you did for me. Robert, it wasn't a favor. It was friendship. Even so, man, you risked your life to help me, and you would have done the same for me. He thought for a bit. I would, but I hope I never have to. We laughed. These days, we laugh a lot. It's good to be able to laugh after so much tension. The end of the story. Yesterday, Robert called me to talk. He said he had some important news. Marcus, Fern said yes. Said yes to what? To marrying me again. Man, I got emotional. After everything they went through, to see that love had won. It's not going to be the same as before, he explained. It's going to be different, more mature, more conscious. But it's going to be real. And where are you going to live? In a new house. We decided not to go back to the old neighborhood. Too many bad memories. We're going to start from scratch in a new place. And the honeymoon. Are you going on a trip? Robert laughed. Marcus, after faking my death, living with a fake ID, and almost being killed by a gang, a honeymoon is going to be staying home, watching Netflix and eating popcorn. Perfect. He got serious for a moment. Marcus, there's something I want to ask you. Yeah, I want you to be my best man. Man, I couldn't hold back the tears. Of course, Robert, it would be an honor. And there's one more thing. What else? Remember that envelope that came for you at the shop last week, with no return address? I remember. I thought it was junk mail. Open it. I grabbed the envelope from the drawer. Inside was a simple card with a sentence written by hand. Thanks for everything. Be happy. See, it was from Carolina. How did she know I work at the shop? I asked. Marcus, she's a federal agent. She knows everything about everyone. Epilogue. So that's it, folks. This was the craziest story that has ever happened in my life, and I've been through a lot in this world. Robert and Fern's wedding is next month. A small ceremony, just family and close friends. They said they don't want a big party, they just want to celebrate the love that managed to survive so much hardship. I'll be there, in a borrowed suit and tie, proud to have helped the people find happiness again. And you know what my wedding gift to them is going to be? A road trip. Not just any road trip, but a car trip, with me driving, to wherever they want to go. Marcus, Fern said when I offered, are you sure? After everything that happened, you still want to drive for us? Fern, I replied, some of the best stories in life start with a car trip. And you too deserve a new story. A beautiful story. She agreed, touched. So that's it. Folks, if you learned anything from this story, let it be this. Life sometimes puts people in our path when we least expect it. And when that happens, we have a choice, to help or to pretend we didn't see. I chose to help, and I don't regret it. Because in the end, we're not remembered for the money we made or the problems we avoided. We're remembered for the lives we touched, for the people we helped, for the moments when we chose to be truly human. And if one day, you're driving late at night and you pick up a passenger with a strange story, remember this story. Remember that sometimes, behind a desperate person, there's an opportunity to make a difference in the world. Robert sent me a text last night. Marcus, thanks for believing I deserved a second chance. I replied, Robert, everyone deserves a second chance. Even you. And that's the truth. Folks, everyone deserves a second chance. Until the next story, Marcus ex-Uber driver, now a mechanic, and forever, someone who believes that good always wins in the end. Man, if you made it this far, thanks for following this crazy journey with me. This story changed my life, and I hope in some way it touches your lives too. If you know someone who's going through a tough time, who needs a second chance, who's lost in life, remember this story. Sometimes, all a person needs is for someone to believe in them. And if you yourself are going through a difficult time, remember, there's always a way out. There's always a chance for a new beginning. No matter how deep you've dug the hole, it's always possible to climb back to the surface. Believe in love. Believe in friendship. Believe in the second chance. Because in the end, that's what makes life worth living.